Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun was setting over the small park in Willow Creek, painting the trees in shades of orange and gold. Children's laughter echoed across the grass, and a few joggers passed by in rhythm. Everything seemed peaceful, until Victoria Blake, a woman with cold manners and a haughty gaze, noticed a young black girl sitting on a bench, surrounded by a few friends. Victoria frowned. "What's that girl doing here?" she murmured, with a mixture of contempt and an obsession for the order she'd created in her head. Without thinking, she pulled out her phone and dialed the police, her fingers trembling with misplaced pride. "Yes, I want to report a suspicious person, there, in the park." "Yes, a young black girl." She hung up with a satisfied smile, convinced she had just protected the community. Little did she know, however, that the young woman she had just announced was not just anyone. The young woman, named Amara Johnson, had grown up in an influential family. Her mother, Olivia Johnson, was not just an ordinary citizen. She was the mayor of the town. A few minutes later, sirens wailed in the park. Victoria felt her heart swell with triumph, but this satisfaction was about to turn to horror. For when Olivia Johnson arrived on the scene, alerted by her advisors, she made no attempt to conceal her presence. The look she gave Victoria was icy, charged with a power and authority that no one dared challenge. That single phone call would trigger a chain of events Victoria could never have imagined. Arrogance had a price, and in that tranquil park, that price would soon be revealed. Victoria Blake had never faced a situation where her small personal power was challenged. She watched Amara sitting on the bench, calm and focused on her book, unaware that a much larger and more powerful world had just been set in motion. A few minutes later, a black police car arrived. 2 officers got out, looking serious, and approached the bench. Victoria felt her heart beat faster, a mixture of pride and anticipation. "That'll show them I'm watching over this park," she thought. But just as she was about to savor her victory, a larger vehicle pulled up next to the police. The door opened, and Olivia Johnson stepped out with a confident stride. Her assistants and a few city guards accompanied her. Her usually warm face was now marked by gravity and suppressed anger. "Victoria Blake," Olivia said in a calm but sharp voice, "can you explain to me why you called the police about my daughter?" Victoria froze, unable to utter a word. Her wide eyes betrayed the fear she tried to conceal behind her usual arrogance. Amara looked up and met her mother's gaze. She knew the situation was about to turn in their favor. The young girl stood slowly and addressed the officers. "I don't see any problem here, gentlemen. I wasn't causing any trouble." Olivia then stepped towards Victoria, her gaze penetrating and cold. "Your behavior is unacceptable, Victoria. It's not up to you to decide who can or cannot stay in this park. And it's certainly not up to you to judge my daughter based on the color of her skin." Victoria felt shame wash over her. She had thought she could exert some control, but faced with the mayor and her daughter, she was nothing more than a powerless spectator. The officers, aware of the gravity of the situation and the hierarchy, exchanged an embarrassed glance. Olivia took a step forward and added, "Consider this a warning. Any further attempts at intimidation or discrimination will be reported and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." Victoria stammered something, but no coherent sound came out of her mouth. She knew immediately that her reputation had just suffered an irreversible blow. As Olivia and Amara walked away, Victoria remained frozen on the bench, watching the girl return to her book as if nothing had happened. In this park, power and authority had just changed hands, and Victoria was about to learn the hard way that her actions had consequences. But that was only the beginning. The next morning, Victoria Blake woke up with a feeling of unease she couldn't ignore. The confrontation in the park kept replaying in her mind. Every detail, Olivia's icy stare, Amara's self-assurance, the police officer's awkward silence. It all haunted her. At the office, word of the incident had already spread. A few colleagues whispered in the corridors, stealing glances at Victoria. Her phone rang incessantly, anonymous messages, calls from outraged neighbors, and even an official letter from the town hall reminding her of the laws against discrimination and harassment. Victoria felt her world crumble. Her reputation, carefully built up over years, was now tarnished by a single thoughtless action. Her superiors, informed of the matter, summoned her to an emergency meeting. Every word spoken by the director echoed through the room like a hammer blow. "Victoria, your behavior is unacceptable and damages the image of our organization. You are suspended until further notice." She tried to protest, to justify her actions, but no one was really listening to her. The shadow of Mayor Olivia Johnson and her daughter Amara loomed over her. Victoria understood that this wasn't just a warning, it was a firm reprimand that her racist and reckless actions would no longer be tolerated. At home, the humiliation continued. Her once cordial neighbors now regarded her with suspicion. Some murmured as she passed, others simply avoided her altogether. Even within her social circle, invitations were few and far between. Victoria was beginning to understand that the entire community could judge her for her mistakes, and that the mayor's power was far from symbolic. Meanwhile, Amara and her mother continued their lives as normal, but they had learned to be wary of future interactions. They knew Victoria might seek revenge or try to regain some semblance of control. However, they remained confident and united. Amara, inspired by her mother's courageous attitude, felt stronger than ever. This chapter of history showed Victoria that every action, even one that seemed insignificant, could trigger unexpected and irreversible consequences. Arrogance and racism had a price, and she was beginning to pay it. But the hardest part was yet to come. Victoria Blake couldn't accept her downfall. Her wounded ego drove her to believe she could still turn things around. Convinced that a public apology would be enough to erase the humiliation, she prepared a carefully written and polished speech, which she intended to deliver to Amara and Olivia. She went to the park one morning, choosing the same bench where it had all begun. Amara was already there, reading quietly, while her mother observed her surroundings, attentive to every movement. Victoria took a deep breath, her gaze oscillating between nervousness and determination. "Amara. Mrs. Johnson. I wanted to apologize for what happened," she began, but her voice was trembling. Olivia raised an eyebrow, and her heavy silence quickly shattered Victoria's fragile confidence. "Your apology is belated and seems motivated more by your reputation than by genuine remorse," Olivia said calmly but firmly. Amara closed her book and added, her gaze direct and uncompromising. "You called the police on me simply because of my skin color. How can you claim that wasn't racist?" Victoria felt a wave of shame wash over her. Her attempts at justification crumbled in the face of the lucidity and authority of this mother and daughter. Every word she uttered seemed to sink her further. But just when she thought she could get away with a measured humiliation, Olivia took a step forward and said, "There are consequences for every action. You will be required to complete an awareness program, and any similar actions in the future will result in severe legal and social penalties." Victoria felt her fictitious power vanish like smoke. For the first time, she realized that her social life, her professional life, and even her personal reputation were now under the shadow of a judgment greater than she could control. As she walked away from the park, her face red with shame and her heart heavy, she understood that this was not just a lesson for her, it was a warning to anyone who thought they could bully or discriminate with impunity. Amara and Olivia remained on the bench for a moment, watching Victoria walk away. They knew that the incident had transformed their relationship with the community. From now on, their strength and unity would be an example of justice and dignity in the face of arrogance and racism. And in the regained calm of the park, they exchanged a knowing look, aware that, sometimes, true power lies simply in the courage to stand tall and never give in to injustice. Several weeks had passed since the incident in the park. Victoria Blake now lived in the shadow of her mistake. The measures imposed by Olivia Johnson were not merely symbolic. She had to complete a mandatory anti-discrimination awareness program, meet regularly with a city councilor, and write reports about her behavior in the community. Every day, she felt the crushing weight of her own arrogance. Rumors of the incident had spread throughout the city. Shopkeepers, neighbors, and colleagues watched Victoria suspiciously. Every social interaction reminded her that she had crossed a line that couldn't be erased with a simple phone call or a belated apology. Amara, for her part, continued to frequent the park as if nothing had happened. Her confidence remained intact, strengthened by her mother's unwavering support. Olivia Johnson, meanwhile, saw in this ordeal an important lesson not only for her daughter, but for the entire community, to show that discrimination was not tolerated and that respect and dignity for everyone carried real weight. One afternoon, Victoria went to the park again, this time to observe the awareness program she was participating in. She saw Amara reading on the bench where it had all begun. The young girl's gaze met hers. There was no hatred, only the firmness of undiminished dignity. Victoria approached, timidly. Amara. I know I can't erase what I've done, but I'm working on changing, she said, her voice trembling. Amara simply nodded, without smiling, but without animosity. Olivia, standing behind her, added. Mistakes are part of life. What matters is what we do to correct them and learn from them. Victoria felt a profound lesson sink into her mind. Fear and shame had been powerful drivers of change. For the first time, she understood that respect and dignity are not imposed through authority or fear, but through conscience and humility. Leaving the park that day, Victoria no longer felt victorious, but awakened. Amara and Olivia, on the other hand, resumed their routine with quiet confidence, knowing that justice and dignity had prevailed. The park, once a stage for arrogance, had become a place of peace once more, but this time with a clear message: those who believe they can intimidate or discriminate learn sooner or later that every action has consequences. And in the light wind that passed through the trees, the message resonated for all: courage, respect, and justice are forces more powerful than any human arrogance.